Hey everybody, welcome to this week's edition of Title Scoop. We're going to continue our discussion on entity authority. We talked about LLCs last week, so this week we're going to talk about corporations. When you have a corporation in your transaction, you're going to make basically the same requirements every time. It's just once you dig a little further, you may need more, as it is on a lot of cases. So when you have a corporation, either buying, selling, mortgaging, you're going to need the same things. You're going to need to know they're in good standing in the state where they're incorporated. You're going to want to see their bylaws. You're going to want to see their articles of incorporation. And then you're going to want to see a resolution. I usually tell people, we want to see a resolution that's pretty specific. We don't want something that's really generic and doesn't really spell out what they're doing, especially depending on what the transaction is. We really want to know who can sign, are they buying, are they selling, what their title is, what the amount is. And then a lot of times they might even set out what happened for this to be approved. You're going to want to see their bylaws, like we said. And again, those might set out some more information where you're going to need more documentation, but it just kind of depends, again, on what kind of transaction. When I say you might need more information, it might be if it's not in their ordinary course of business. Maybe they're selling all their assets, in which case usually the bylaws are going to be really specific as to who needs to be notified, who needs to approve, how many people, and then, basically what the procedure is. So again, when you have a transaction, you really want to look at all those documents as a whole to really determine what exactly you need to look at in order to do this transaction. Another thing that I talk about with corporations is really some of those red flags or situations where you're like, well, what do I need to do? One is you might see one where you get on the Secretary of State and maybe they're inactive, maybe they're not in good standing. There's a variety of things it can say depending on your state. But a lot of times all that is them paying their back dues. Maybe they just let it lapse, and so then they're inactive, or they're not in good standing because they haven't paid. So that's just something, again, to look out for. But again, usually it's a pretty easy fix. It's a lot of times them just paying, and then they'll be reactivated on the Secretary of State. If it's a filing issue, then they may need to file something. But again, they're gonna need to contact the Secretary of State to know what it is to get them into good standing. Another thing that you might see is if a corporation has dissolved, a lot of times people will ask, well, what am I supposed to do? Does that go to the shareholders? Does that go, where does that go? Does that go to the board of directors? And it still is going to be, you're still going to title it unless they've done something in the name of the corporation. And then we may just need to make more requirements in order for them to sell or buy, whatever it is that they're trying to do, whatever the transaction is. And again, it may just need approval. We need to look at the bylaws. And again, we may just need to work with the Secretary of State in order to get some of the stuff taken care of. If it's a winding down situation, again, their bylaws should be pretty specific, but if not, we're going to look at statutes so that we can work with you to figure out what they need to do. So with that, I don't think I have anything else on, one more thing. Foreign entities. So foreign entities are usually any entity that's outside of your state. So when you have a corporation, you're going to make the same requirements, but again, you may not have access to the Secretary of State for a different state, so they may have to provide it for you if you do have access in your current state. So again, you're going to make the same requirements as a starting point, and then again, if we see anything where we're like, hey, we need more information, we're just going to tell them, hey, this is what we need. And again, call your underwriter. We're happy to look at that stuff with you and determine if you need anything additional. So with that, we're going to call it a week. If you have any other topics, let me know. If not, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.